Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Good morning from West London. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata. After a brief intermission, we will continue with the pastime of the liberation of Jagai and Madhai, the famous story of redemption, the grace of Nityananda Prabhu in action. So, we left off where Jagai and Madhai are now redeemed, having received the grace of Mahaprabhu via the intervention, the grace of Nityananda Prabhu, illustrating in quite an extreme fashion how redemption from a distressful, unsatisfying material condition is redemption from that is facilitated by the grace of Gauranga Mahaprabhu through the vehicle, through the instrumentation of Nityananda Prabhu. So there's something of a let's say continuum of grace. Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha Krishna. That's the general progression, we could say, a progression of understanding. And the lesson embedded there is that it's not to be jumped over. You don't try and skip Nityananda Prabhu or try and skip Mahaprabhu, project yourself into the domain of Radha Krishna. It's not going to work. So in a very basic and you could say somewhat extreme way, this is represented as in this story of Jagai and Madhai as Madhai and particularly particularly Madhai was not going to be saved, not going to be rescued, if it was not for the active intervention of Nityananda Prabhu. So let's continue. So we finished with this paragraph as follows. Vishvambha sat down and Nityananda and Gadadhara sat on either side of him. In front, facing him, sat the exalted Advaita Acharya, around whom sat the rest of the devotees. They were Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Haridas Thakur, Gurudai, Ramai, Srivas, Gangadas, Vakreshwara Pandit, Chandrasekhara, and many other associates of the Lord, who all knew the real nature of his activities. They all sat in that assembly with Jagai and Madhai. Jagai and Madhai were so swayed by the spiritual ecstasy generated in the Kirtan and Vaishnava assembly that they began rolling on the ground, manifesting the symptoms of ecstasy like horripilation, profusion of tears, shivering, etc. Who is able to fathom the unlimited nectarine pastimes of the Lord? He can convert two rogues into exalted devotees. They were previously atheists and sinners, but now they were like two renounced spiritualists. Whoever has faith in these activities of the Lord will certainly attain the lotus feet of Krishna. The worst degradation is certainly reserved for the non-believers. Jagai and Madhai offered prayers and praised the Lord. The Lord and the devotees heard them in great happiness. By the will of the Lord, Saraswati Devi, the goddess of learning, appeared on their tongues. Jagai and Madhai both saw Sri Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda sitting in one place, and they perceived their actual individual spiritual identities. The prayers they offered were so potent that if one hears them, one immediately develops loving attachment to Krishna. They prayed, All glory to Sri Vishvambara, the Lord of Lords. All glory to Sri Nityananda, who is serving Sri Vishvambara in so many ways. All glory to Sri Chaitanya, who is the preceptor for the congregational chanting of the name of Krishna. All glory to Sri Nityananda, who carries out all Sri Chaitanya's desires. All glory to the son of Jagannath Mishra. All glory to Sri Nityananda, who has taken complete shelter of Sri Chaitanya. All glory to Shachi Devi's son, who is an ocean of mercy. And all glory to Nityananda, the Lord's constant companion. All glory to you, the Lord of my heart, who was born as the son of a regal scholar. And all glory to Nityananda, who is the embodiment of compassion. All glories to the activities of Lord Chaitanya, and all glories to Lord Nityananda, the most exalted Vaishnav. All glory to the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya, who holds the conch, disc, mace and lotus. All glory to Lord Nityananda, who is non-different from Lord Chaitanya and is glorious as Avadut. All glory to Lord Gaurachandra, the life and soul of Advaita Acharya. All glory to Lord Nityananda, who in his expansion as Anantashesh is glorifying the Lord with his thousands of mouths. All glory to Lord Chaitanya, Gadadhara Pandit's life force and the master of Murari. He is the source of all joy to Haridas Thakur and Vasudev. What song does that remind you of? That little paragraph is the prayers from Jagai and Madhai when they've been redeemed, freshly redeemed, and they're offering these effusive prayers. Or not prayers, like praise. All glory to Lord Chaitanya, Gadadhara Pandit's life force, the master of Murari. He is the source of all joy to Haridas Thakur and Vasudev. It just quickly reminded me of Guru Maharaj's song.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It reminds me of...
Yeah, Jai Sachinanda.
Yeah.
O Lord, you have in all your previous incarnations delivered the innumerable sinful persons. These acts are supremely wonderful, and the whole world sings hymns praising these pastimes. In fact, by delivering two sinful wretches like us, the glories of your previous activities are somewhat reduced. After all, we are insignificant.
These are Jagai Madhai's prayers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got a bit lost.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying they reminded you of Jagai Madhai's prayers.
No, they are Jagai Madhai's prayers. It reminded me of...
She's very deeply acquainted with Chaitanya. Yeah, I was thinking of... Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Okay.
I wish I was. I'm not that deeply acquainted with it. The story of Ajamil's deliverance is glorious. We seem puny and small next to that. This we say not in useless praise, but with full conviction. Ajamil was the right candidate for your mercy. The Vedas declare that even a killer of millions of Brahmanas can attain liberation immediately upon chanting your holy name. It is not at all surprising that Ajamil attained liberation by chanting your name, because such is the transcendental potency of your holy name. You have incarnated especially to expound the highest truth of the Vedas. The authority of the Vedas would be undermined if sinners like us were not delivered. We were inimical towards you, and we even struck your beloved Nityananda, yet you still delivered us. One can easily judge the unimaginable difference between your magnanimous act and our heinous low performance. As soon as Ajamil uttered Narayan, 4 messages of the Lord appeared before him. As for us, when we saw you, we immediately drew blood from your forehead, for which we were able to see your expansion. The expansion of your expansion. Your weapon for this incarnation. And your eternal associates. You had all along kept these wonderful truths a secret, but now these unlimited supreme excellencies have been exposed. You might wonder how they've gone from being intoxicated 1 minute to offering this eloquent praise just the next minute. And of course, at the beginning of this little section, it says that due to the grace of Mahaprabhu, Goddess Saraswati is empowering them to to offer this praise. We read it just before. Where is it? Jagai and Madhai offered prayers and praise of the Lord. The Lord and his devotees heard them in great happiness. By the will of the Lord, Saraswati Devi, the goddess of learning, appeared on their tongues.
It's funny because you hear that sometimes in these kinds of moments, like some blessing comes to be able to say like right thing. Like also Dhruva Maharaj, right? And the Lord like blesses him. Doesn't it say that? So he's able to express himself. Do you remember that? Like
I don't remember that exact bit.
He touches him with his conch or something. I seem to remember some transaction like that.
And of course we have that symbiotic dialogue, which happens in the Ramananda Samvad, where they're both saying it's your blessings which is causing me to further eliciting deeper and deeper conceptions of devotion to Krishna, and both attributing it to the mercy of the other. I guess that's related. So you had all along kept these wonderful truths a secret, but now these unlimited super excellencies have been exposed. Now, by your grace, the essence of the Vedas has been clarified, and so Anantashesh may openly and freely sing your truth. Now the hidden storehouse of your transcendental qualities has been opened. The best example of this is your causeless mercy in saving us. Demons like Kamsa were cruel to you, yet you gave them liberation after killing them. You have so many aspects which are most confidential, and none of the kings and warriors could discover even the smallest amount of them when they fought with you at the Swayamvara of Rukmini Devi. Although they could see you face to face, they all met with doom. Previously, devotees would clean themselves in the holy waters of the Ganga, if perchance they even stepped on our shadows. However, now they are touching and mingling with us, O Lord. In every respect, your activities are supramundane, and there is no way to deceive anyone anymore about your transcendental nature. Everyone is now well aware of this. When Gajendra, the king of the elephants, prayed to you, you appreciated his faith and surrender. Therefore, you relieved him of his distressful condition and gave liberation to him. Similarly, it was not by accident that you delivered Putana, the witch, and all the other demons like Agasura, Bakasura, etc. Upon leaving their bodies, they were immediately transported to transcendence. Who can understand your activities unless they approach the subject through the knowledge of the Vedas? The way you have delivered these two most wretched fallen souls was witnessed by the entire creation. All the wretched sinners you have delivered so far had some kind of qualification, but we both had not a single qualification. Yet you have causelessly delivered us because of your unlimitedly merciful nature. Jagai and Madhai finished their prayers with tears of joy streaking down their glowing faces. Such is the transcendental potency of the Lord. The assembled Vaishnavas were astounded, having seen everything that had just happened in their very presence, and they clasped their hands in great reverence before the Lord, offering him their prayers. The choice of words that were just spoken by these two drunkards in praising you were possible only by your causeless mercy. Who can understand the nature of your inconceivable potencies? You give your mercy by your own sweet will. The Lord replied, these two are not to be considered as drunks or rogues anymore. From now on, they are my servitors. All of you kindly pray for them, that they may never leave my devotional service. Whatever offenses they may have committed against any of you, please forgive them and bless them. Any comments?
It's very nice because I've never read Chaitanya Bhagavata and the Leela of Jagai and Madhai. It's described in Chaitanya Bhagavata, so it's nice to hear these details that I haven't heard before.
It's a little bit of a shame we don't have an original with the original text and translation. This is, of course, a prose version.
Yeah.
Still nice, and in a sense, a more readable and fluid, but there's no substitute for the original text of Vrindavan Das Thakur.
Another thing which came to mind is that it's kind of encouraging, like if we're ever in a situation where we need to offer prayers, we don't know what to say, we can pray to Gadadhara, please help me. I mean, whether or not.
Have you done that before?
I'm not doing that. If I see Gurudev again, then I'll try that. If I'm ever so fortunate as to be in that situation, then I will invoke the assistance of Saraswati, who may or may not be inclined to do so. But it's nice to know the possibilities.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a thing. But it's I've heard of other instances like that. Like, Gurudev has made some comment like that. There's also an instance of Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. Janardhan Maharaj told us. It was Tamal Krishna. He was Maharaj. He was told. Prabhupada told him to not do some particular preaching activity, and Tamal Krishna was very, because it was a little controversial for different reasons. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very disappointed. He said, "Oh, I may as well just go preach in China then." And then Srila Swami Maharaj said, "Oh, Saraswati has spoken through you." And he sent him to China.
Yeah.
There are other examples I've heard of too. Saraswati was, I think in Chaitanya Charitamrita some examples were mentioned also.
I mean, yeah. There was, of course, Keshava Kashmiri, who was a great devotee of Saraswati. And then bewildered when no one could defeat him in terms of his genius composition. Genius, that says it, composition. But then Mahaprabhu defeats him quite effortlessly.
Yeah.
And he becomes disillusioned and asks Goddess Saraswati, well, you've let me down in a moment of need, and you've let me down. But of course, that was you could say by to show something by showing its opposite. So Saraswati's glorifying Mahaprabhu by withdrawing from Keshava Kashmiri. She is actually glorifying Mahaprabhu, right?
Yes.
So she's showing the glories and the supremacy of Mahaprabhu by withdrawing her grace from Keshava Kashmiri temporarily. But there was another instance you were thinking about?
Yeah, I think it's mentioned in another place too. Anyway, that idea, it seems to be like the thing in the Vedic world. That Goddess Saraswati will come through in certain cases.
That was Tamal Krishna Maharaj was heading up the Radha Damodar preaching party.
Right.
They had a bunch of Greyhound buses, and they were preaching around.
They had their own Greyhound buses?
Yeah, they had a little fleet of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had a little fleet of... They'd kitted them out, like they'd taken out all the seats.
Oh, wow.
And they'd turned them into little temples.
Oh, wow.
And the main one had an altar at the back of the bus.
Did you see one?
Well, there's photos of it.
Okay.
There's photos of them. They were very famous in the 70s. It was a very dynamic preaching program, college preaching. So they'd go around to campuses and they'd park the buses up wherever they could, and then they'd do preaching on campus. and really they were generating a lot of new devotees joining, quite dynamic preaching. But there was some conflict there, and so I didn't actually hear of that statement by Srila Prabhupada to Tamal Krishna saying, "Oh, Saraswati has spoken."
Yeah, from Janardhan.
Right.
Was there.
Yeah, he would know.
Yeah. I think the conflict might have been that, like, they were taking too many devotees from the temples, and then some of the temple managers.
Yeah, there's a bit of, I could tell you about it another time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
there's some history there.
Okay.
But Tamal Krishna didn't end up staying in China. It was too difficult. It was him and another fellow called Dristadumna,
Okay.
Swami at the time, they went to China, but they found it too difficult there. And eventually they started something in Hong Kong. And then it spread, which was a British colony at the time, of course. And then they do have something in China now, I think.
They do, yeah. There's something in China, especially Beijing. There's fairly big congregation, and other places too.
So, we'll finish this page and then we can finish the pastime on another day soon. Hearing Lord Chaitanya's words, Jagai and Madhai threw themselves down at the feet of all the Vaishnavas, catching their feet, begged for mercy. The devotees were moved by their humility and blessed them. Thus Jagai and Madhai became free from all desires to commit further sinful activities. So it's interesting here that even having obtained the mercy of Mahaprabhu via the facility or via the intervention of Nityananda Prabhu, still having obtained that, and Mahaprabhu is still invoking the blessings of the collective of Vaishnavas, or the assembled Vaishnavas there, in order to ratify their new position, in order to secure it.
Yeah. You see that example in other places too, like with when Mahaprabhu was established Rupa Goswami, right? He says, just my blessings is not enough, but he wants, the whole congregation of Vaishnavas to bestow their blessings, to really solidify Goswami's position. Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's like consistent all across the board, like we need to have the well wishes of all the Vaishnavas.
And also in Gurudev's Pranam mantra, Guru Ganer Ashisan Sambhusitam.
Too, yeah. That makes it even more like having the blessings of your Guru. That's wonderful. But to have blessings of not only that, but the whole Guru section, your uncle Gurus, that's much more. And it shows it's not just a personality thing, or just about Guru and disciple kind of flattering each other, right? But it shows the depth of this, and that it's appreciated and can be appreciated impartially, right? By others of a qualified standing.
Yes. Lord Chaitanya said, "Rise, rise, O Jagai and Madhai, you have nothing to worry about anymore, now that you are my servitors. Your prayers were all true and well appreciated. Such mercy and miracles that you have now witnessed and experienced is impossible in your present bodies, but is now made possible only by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. This is an absolute fact. All you Vaishnavas present here, please witness that I am taking upon myself all the sinful actions of these two souls." To make everyone understand that he was accepting the sinful actions of Jagai and Madhai, Lord Chaitanya's body became blackish in complexion. The Lord inquired, "Do you all look at me in this manner? How do I look? Oh no, the Lord inquired, why do you all look at me in this manner? How do I look? And Advaita Acharya replied, you look like Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya began to laugh at Advaita Acharya's words, and all the Vaishnavas became ecstatic and expressed their joy with jubilant sounds. Lord Chaitanya said, begin kirtan, then this black shroud of sin will lift from my body and enter the bodies of those who criticize the devotees of the Lord. The devotees were happy to hear these words, and they began a loud kirtan. Vishwambara and Nityananda began to dance, and the Vaishnavas encircled them in joyful abandonment, singing their praise. Advaita Acharya also began to dance. Lord Chaitanya had advented on his request, and the world was saved because of him alone. Everyone joined in the ecstatic singing and dancing, keeping time with their clapping, with their clapping of hands. In their joy, they forgot their awe and reverence for the Lord. Nobody knows the countless times they bumped into the Lord while dancing. Mother Sachi sat in the inner chambers with her daughter-in-law. So this was taking place actually in Mahaprabhu's house, in Sachimata's house, interestingly enough. For some reason I thought it was in Srivas Pandit's house, but it's actually in Mahaprabhu's own house.
I thought this was taking place in the streets of Navadvip.
Well, they went there.
Yeah,
see, it's interesting, because I've heard retellings where it does appear that is the setting for the assault on Nityananda Prabhu, and then the Mahaprabhu summoning his chakra and etc. as the pastime goes, their redemption. But here we were reading the other day, that it was just outside Mahaprabhu's own residence. He was returning to. No, he was nearby. Nityananda Prabhu was like going to Mahaprabhu's residence or something. So it seems like there's slight different impressions one gets from different tellings of the story, of the pastime.
And Jagai and Madhai just happened to be there.
Yeah, they were loitering around there.
I see.
We can read it quickly. One day Nityananda was returning to Sri Chaitanya's house in the evening, after moving about town the whole day. So he was on his way back. I mean, this is presuming this prose rendition is absolutely, literally accurate to the verse original, which we can assume it is, right? One day Nityananda was returning to Sri Chaitanya's house in the evening after moving about town the whole day. The two rogues intercepted and halted him. Jagai and Madhai shouted out, "What and who is this?" And Nityananda replied, "I'm going to Nimai Pandit's house."
Oh, so they actually stopped him.
That's what it says here, yeah.
Right, but this is the second encounter, right? I think
Yes.
the first one Nityananda had approached them.
With Haridas Thakur, and they ended up running away.
I see. So this is another thing. They actually intercepted him.
So it says, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
They ask, "What is your name?" And Nityananda replies, "My name is Avadut." And then it goes on from there.
It's like these bully types.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah, they were like typical thugs.
Yeah.
But it seems like it was difficult to apprehend them, perhaps because of they were Brahmanas, right?
Right, and they had some government posts as well, I believe.
I see.
Power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says after dark, half of Navadvip was pretty much like locked down after dark because of them. People were afraid to.
That bad?
Yeah.
No, I didn't
It says
know.
that.
It's like that.
Yeah. It says the entire neighborhood was in the grips of terror.
Oh, wow.
After dusk, no one ventured to the Ganga for their evening ablutions. So people were afraid to go out after dark,
I
right?
had no idea they were that bad.
Yeah. They were like terrorizing the neighborhood.
Huh.
So Mother Sachi sat in the inner chambers with her daughter-in-law Vishnupriya, and seeing everything felt herself carried away by waves of ecstasy. Everyone was drowned in the flood of happiness of Krishna Prem, Sri Krishna. Even Lakshmi Devi is very careful about touching the Lord's body, but now even two former drunkards were freely mingling, dancing, and touching the Lord. Lord Chaitanya delivered these two while sometimes the sentence structure here seems a bit doesn't flow. Lord Chaitanya delivered these two while he pushed the fault finders and offenders of the Vaishnavas down to the worst well. One never advances in spiritual life by finding faults in other Vaishnavas. In fact, only sinful reactions are increased. So certainly give up all your fault finding. After dancing, the Lord sat down and all the Vaishnavas sat around him. The Vaishnavas were covered in thick layers of dust, yet they were clean and glowing. The Lord again looked like his original beautiful golden self, and smiling he said, "Do not consider these two persons as being sinners any longer, since I, myself, have burnt up their sins." My energy has entered. We need to tell this story to some dogmatic Christian. Jesus is the only way. My energy has entered them, and I make them act, speak, walk, eat. And when I withdraw my energy, they will leave their bodies behind. The conditioned living entity, being unable to bear much pain, calls out for help upon experiencing a little suffering. But even after the body has been burnt to ashes, the soul wants to continue his association with the body. All right. The conditioned Jagai. The conditioned living entity, under the influence of his false ego, begins to accredit himself for all his activities and becomes proud. This is very dangerous. All the activities so far carried out by these two were under the spell of false ego, but now I have stopped all of that. From now on, they should be counted amongst you as Vaishnavas without discrimination. So Mahaprabhu is making it clear that there's to be no further judgment, no further dwelling on the history of these two people. They should be unconditionally accepted into the Vaishnava fold. Of course, it's to be noted that even given their unconditional acceptance, they still assumed quite humble roles, quite menial roles. For example, one of the two, like what's the gut? Madhai gut, is it still in Navadvip there? Yeah. So that was maintained. Perhaps it tells it later in the story, it probably does. But it was maintained, kept clean and in a good state of repair by Madhai. That was his service. Yeah. Whereas previously people were afraid to go to the Ganga because of him. Now he was facilitating their journey and their business at the Ganga.
Taking their foot dust.
Yeah.
It's clean. Yeah, that point really struck me too. It's mentioned as one of the, Bhakti Thakur specifically mentions it as one of the principal types of Vaishnava Ninda, criticism, offense to the Vaishnava, to consider their past history. Before someone came to Vaishnavism, to consider what they did before. So that struck me too. He made that very clear. Like, now I've accepted them, I've absolved all their sin. You should not consider anything from before. It's important. Because there can be that mood of envy, right, sometimes. Like, oh, now they're looking so bright, but you don't know what they did before.
Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajate Mamananyabhak. Is that Bhajate Mamananyabhak? The Gita one. Even if someone sinks low, shouldn't judge them too harshly based on that. And then, of course, it relates to Guru Maharaj saying, so, but we should try and judge a person by their ideals.
Yeah.
So if you can search out, if they have a high ideal, perhaps they can't live it immediately in the present. But eventually that ideal will materialize. And that should be the condition on which we base our opinion of that person. What's the rest of that sloka? Apiche sudaracharo bhajate mamananya bhak.
Sadhareva samantavya.
How does it go? Samyageva samantavya.
Sadhareva samantavya. Samyag.
Vyavasito hi saha.
And kipram bhavati dharmatma. Yeah, actually that's a good point, that in that list of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions should not consider what faults were committed previously by Vaishnavas, what their current faults may be, what mistakes they may make in the future. There's no room, because as you're saying, it comes down to that. They've taken up this ideal that Pichet Rajate Sadra Eva Samyag Vyavasito, because their resolve is perfect. They may not be able to live up to that, their current activity may not be up to that standing, but that is their resolve, their wholehearted resolve is there. So that we are honoring. If they subscribe to that, then we have to, we cannot consider anything else. I have to say, it's very difficult for practitioners to really accept that, and it's difficult even to try and explain it sometimes. In my experience, very few devotees can really embrace this within. In my experience with different communities, and to theoretically accept it, and then in a practical way, when you face these situations, it's a tricky thing, and it can be very sensitive. Very tricky.
Of course, it has to be applied with common sense, because it is a concept that is open to some abuse.
Sure.
This is talking very practically, from a very practical perspective, that it cannot be used to justify hypocrisy or to justify misbehaviors.
And this is why Jagai Maharaj, he told Srila Maharaj, please don't publish this explanation. This is dangerous. He tried to stop Srila Maharaj.
What exact explanation of what?
This of specifically the second verse.
Okay.
The Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma
Shashaksantam
Nigachati Kunteya Pratijanihi. That verse in particular.
Yeah, because on one hand you could say criminals love that. Rogues would love that. But of course, I think if someone has sincerity, then a light is shown on the path, and there's not too much of a chance of falling prey to people that want to misapply these concepts. There's always going to be the odd individual, I think. But pretty soon they end up getting exposed. If it's a pretty gross thing, if you're trying to sin and then say, Apicha Sudaracharo, you should consider me very advanced, Trust, I've actually seen it done.
I've also seen it. Shameless.
Yeah. But I think, like you said, it's difficult to apply, right? Even the theory, as you said, what to speak of the practice. What to speak of the praxis. I learned a new word the other day, praxis. It kind of just means practical application of something, like practice, the praxis of it. But perhaps I think if you have that general cultivation of Trinadapi Sunichena,
Right.
and then it will fall into place,
Right.
I'd imagine.
Right. Yeah, that safeguards us.
There's just a couple of brief paragraphs I'll finish here. Himself, from now on, they shall be counted amongst you as Vaishnavas without discrimination. All of you, please listen attentively. Anyone who gives these two brothers anything to eat with respect and devotion is, in fact, offering to Lord Krishna the most relishable honey. Even a leaf offered with love to them is nectar to Krishna. Wow, so the praise is getting quite highfalutin now, isn't it? If anyone ridicules these two in any way, they will be destroyed because of their offensive attitude. The Vaishnavas were pleased to have Jagai and Madhai join their fold and offered them obeisances. The Lord said, "Let us all go to the waters of the Bhagirati, Ganga." As they came to the river, they all jumped inside. Constant chanting of Krishna's holy name had made the devotees young in spirit, and now they played in the Jahnavi, Ganga's waters, like little children. Even the sober older devotees were acting like restless youths. This is the truth. This is truth by the influence of devotional service to Krishna. So we can finish it another day. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur Ki Jai. Should we read briefly from Shri Guru and His Grace? Just a couple of minutes.
You know, we do have we are going to have a program like 11, right? It's a
Okay.
Saturday.
We'll finish up now then.
I mean, if you want to.
No, we went on longer than normal with the Chaitanya Bhagavata, so that'll do. Hari Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra. Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha. Shri Jiva Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Giridhari Ji ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalachari Maharaj ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Srila Guru Dev ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varg ki Jai. Vishwa Varanya Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Samaveda Vaishnav Mandala ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Chapter ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari 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 Bo ki Jai.